The thunder rolled softly across Los Angeles, shaking the thin glass of Sandra's kitchen window. The rain had begun to fall in fine silver threads, blurring the city lights outside. Keanu and Sandra stood together in silence, staring at the date on the back of the note. September 18, 1994. The sound of that year hung between them, the memory of long days on set, laughter between takes, the quiet moments they never talked about. Sandra traced the numbers with her finger. "That was the night of the rap party," she said softly. "Our last night together before you flew to Toronto." Keanu nodded slowly. "Yeah. I remember we said goodbye outside the studio. And that's when," her voice faded, "you said something, I never forgot it." He looked at her curiously. "What did I say?" She gave a small, fragile smile. "You said some things are better left unsaid, at least for now, and I thought that meant you didn't feel the same way." His eyes softened. "It didn't mean that. It meant I wasn't brave enough to say it yet." Her heart ached at the honesty in his tone. The years between them suddenly felt like wasted time, words swallowed by pride and fear. But the paper in Keanu's hand still demanded attention. "Someone's bringing us back to that night for a reason," he said. "There's something we missed." Sandra nodded slowly. "The rap party was at the old warehouse by the river. They turned it into a private event space after. It's probably still there." "Then we should go," he said firmly. She hesitated. Now he met her eyes. "Whoever's behind this isn't going to wait. If we don't move first, they'll keep coming." The storm outside grew louder, lightning flashing over the city. Sandra took a breath, grabbed her coat, and followed him. As they stepped into the night, the air smelled of rain and pavement. Keanu's motorcycle waited near the curb, glistening with droplets. He handed her a helmet. "You still remember how to ride with me?" he asked, his voice almost teasing. She smiled faintly despite the tension. "Like I ever forgot." When she wrapped her arms around him, it felt both strange and familiar, like a memory that had waited years to breathe again. The engine roared to life and they sped through the wet streets, the city lights stretching like broken reflections on the asphalt. They didn't speak much. Both were lost in thought, their minds circling the same question: why now? Who was doing this? When they reached the riverfront, the old warehouse stood just as she remembered it, dark, weathered, and half forgotten. The metal doors were rusted but unlocked. Keanu pushed one open slowly, the hinges groaning under years of dust. Inside, the space was quiet, the air cold and stale. Old film posters still hung on the walls, faded relics of a time when everything had seemed simpler. Sandra looked around, her eyes adjusting to the dim light. "This is where we all celebrated, right here. They had lights, music, everything." Keanu walked toward the far end of the room, his boots echoing against the concrete floor. "And this is where we talked," he said quietly, almost to himself. She followed him, and for a moment it felt like stepping back in time. She could still see her younger self laughing, his smile across the room, the warmth of that one perfect night before everything changed. Then she noticed something strange. Near the wall where they once sat, a small wooden box rested on a dusty crate, untouched but out of place. "Keanu," she whispered. "Look." He walked over and crouched beside it. There was a faint marking on the lid, SB+KR, carved roughly by hand. Her breath caught. That's ours." He ran his fingers over the letters. "We did this that night, didn't we?" She nodded slowly, her memory beginning to sharpen. "We wrote our initials on a napkin and carved them here. You said it was our secret mark." He opened the box carefully. Inside was a small envelope, yellowed with age, and a Polaroid photograph. He lifted the photo first. It showed the two of them at the rap party, laughing, arms around each other, unaware someone had captured the moment. Behind them, a mirror reflected a shadow of another person, blurred and almost hidden. "Do you see that?" she asked. Keanu squinted. "Yeah, someone was watching us." He opened the envelope next. A folded piece of paper slid out, covered in ink smudges. It wasn't just any paper, it was the letter, her letter. Sandra froze. "But that's impossible." "I burned it." He looked at her. "Then someone kept a copy." She took the paper with trembling hands, unfolding it slowly. The handwriting was hers, raw, emotional, and honest. "Dear Keanu, I don't know if you'll ever read this, but I need to say it. I loved you then, and I still do. I think I always will. You see me in ways no one else ever did. Maybe that's why I'm scared, because losing you would mean losing myself." Her voice broke as she read the words aloud. She stopped halfway, tears clouding her vision. Keanu took the letter gently from her hands and continued. "If we never speak again after tonight, know that you made me believe in goodness again. Maybe in another life we'll be brave enough to choose each other." The paper shook slightly in his grip. For a long time, neither of them spoke. Finally, he said quietly, "This isn't just about us anymore. Someone wanted us to find this, to remember." "But why?" she whispered. Before he could answer, a light flickered from the far corner of the warehouse. A projector came to life suddenly, casting a beam across the dusty air. The image on the wall was grainy, but clear enough to see a video from that same night in 1994. Sandra's laughter filled the room, echoing through the emptiness. Keanu was beside her, smiling, unaware of the camera following them. Then the image shifted. It zoomed in on them standing by the crate, carving their initials. A voice, low and unfamiliar, whispered behind the camera, "One day they'll have to face it." The video stopped. The silence that followed was deafening. Keanu turned to her slowly. "Whoever filmed that was here that night. But everyone we knew from that shoot," she stopped herself. "No, that can't be," he exhaled slowly. "It means someone's been keeping this for 30 years, waiting for the right moment to bring it back." She sat down on a nearby chair, her mind spinning. "Why would anyone care about something so personal?" He looked at her, his eyes calm but focused. "Maybe it's not about us being together. Maybe it's about what that night really meant. What else happened here?" She frowned. "What do you mean?" He pointed to the projection equipment. "That wasn't random. Someone placed it here." "Recently," she stood, her fear replaced by quiet determination. "Then whoever it is wants us to come closer. Fine, we will." He looked at her, surprised but impressed. "You sure?" She nodded. "I'm done running from the past." As they turned to leave, the rain outside grew heavier, pounding against the roof. Keanu picked up the photo and folded the letter carefully, putting them both in his jacket. But as they stepped toward the exit, Sandra noticed something scratched into the wall near the door, faint but freshly etched. "Truth finds light," the same words from the first note. Keanu touched the carving with his hand, his jaw tightening. They were here. Tonight, a cold wind blew through the doorway, and somewhere in the distance, an engine started. When they looked outside, headlights flashed once, then disappeared into the storm. Sandra shivered. "They're watching us, Keanu?" He turned toward her, his voice steady but low. "Then it's time we watch back." And as they stood in the rain, the thunder echoing over the river, neither of them realized that the truth they were chasing wasn't buried in the past. It was waiting for them in the present, closer than either of them imagined. The storm of truth, the rain, did not stop that night. It came down like a curtain of silver, washing the streets of Los Angeles with an almost deliberate persistence. The city seemed smaller beneath the weight of the storm. Keanu and Sandra stood by the river, soaked but unmoving, the glow of the distant headlights still fading into the dark. They rode back to her apartment in silence. The sound of the motorcycle drowned in the rain, but inside both of them the noise of memory was deafening. Sandra's mind replayed that voice from the old footage. One day they'll have to face it. She kept asking herself who would say such a thing. Someone who knew them both, someone who had been close enough to film their private moment. When they reached her building, Keanu parked the bike under the awning. She removed her helmet slowly, her fingers trembling slightly from the cold. "We can't go back in blind," he said. "Whoever's behind this is steps ahead. They're watching, planning." She nodded quietly. "Then we find out who." They entered her apartment, dripping with rain. The place felt different now, not like home, but like a stage where something unseen waited. Keanu went to check the windows, locking each one again. Sandra poured 2 cups of tea and sat at the table, her reflection faint in the glass. "You think this could be someone from the old crew?" she asked. "Someone who worked on the film?" Keanu turned toward her. "Maybe, or maybe someone connected to one of them. This feels personal. Whoever it is, they know both our lives." She stared into her cup. "It's strange, isn't it? After all these years, the past comes back, but not in the way you imagine. Not with smiles or nostalgia, but with shadows." He sat across from her, his voice calm but firm. "The past has a way of demanding its share of the present." She gave a small, sad smile. "You always did talk like a philosopher," he chuckled softly. "Or maybe just someone who's lived too many lives." The warmth of that moment was brief. Suddenly her phone buzzed again. This time it was a photo message, no number, no name. She opened it slowly. The picture showed the same warehouse they had just left, but taken from outside only minutes ago. Through the rain-streaked window, 2 silhouettes could be seen standing close together. Them. Her hand tightened around the phone. "Keanu," she whispered, showing him the screen. He leaned closer. "They were watching us the whole time. But from where?" He frowned. "They must have followed us, maybe still are." She stood up, her pulse quickening. "What do they want?" He took the phone gently from her hand, studying the image. "They're not trying to scare you. They're trying to push us towards something, like they're setting a trail." She sank into her chair. "Then where does it end?" He looked up at her, his expression serious. At the truth, she nodded slowly. But the truth about what? Before he could answer, his phone vibrated again. It was a text this time from an unknown number. You found the letter, next comes the confession. Confession? Sandra repeated. What does that mean? Keanu's eyes narrowed. Someone's playing with our memories. They want us to remember something specific from that night. Maybe something we didn't even realize happened. She shook her head. I don't remember anything wrong about that night. It was just a wrap party. People drank, laughed, said goodbye. But what if something happened after? He asked. The question made her pause. After? Yeah, after everyone left. What if we stayed longer than we remember? She frowned, trying to reach for the fragments of that night. We talked by the river, I remember that. We carved our initials. Then she stopped. Then what? Her voice lowered. I remember you leaving to get something from your car. I waited. Then a man came up to me. I can't remember his face, just that he knew your name. What did he say? He said, don't trust everyone who smiles. Then he walked away. Keanu sat back, absorbing her words. Someone warned you, and that's the same night that letter disappeared. She nodded slowly, realization dawning in her eyes. You think that man took it? Maybe, or maybe he took more than that. His tone made her look up. What do you mean? I mean maybe he took something from me too, something I don't remember losing. They both fell silent. The sound of rain against the windows filled the room again. It wasn't just weather anymore, it felt like time itself washing over them, erasing and revealing at once. After a long pause, Sandra whispered, what if this is someone we both knew, someone close? Keanu nodded. That's what I'm starting to think. Just then there was a soft knock at the door, 3 slow knocks, the same rhythm as before. Sandra froze. Keanu stood immediately, motioning her to stay back. He opened the door halfway, his body blocking the entrance. A young woman stood there, soaked from the rain, her eyes red from tears. Are you Keanu Reeves? She asked quietly. Yeah, he said cautiously. Who are you? She looked past him toward Sandra. My name is Claire, my father. Used to work with you both. He passed away last year. I think he left something for you. She held out a small envelope wrapped in plastic to protect it from the rain. Keanu took it carefully. Who was your father? Sandra asked. Michael Fowler, she said. He was a cameraman on Speed. He always said that night changed everything, but he never told me why. Before he died, he told me if anything strange ever happened around your names, I should deliver this. Keanu's eyes darkened slightly. He remembered Michael, quiet, professional, always with a camera hanging from his neck. Thank you, he said softly. Claire nodded. I don't know what this means, but I hope it helps. Then she turned and disappeared down the hallway. Keanu closed the door. Sandra watched as he unwrapped the envelope and unfolded the papers inside. There was a note in Michael's handwriting and another photograph. The note read, if you're reading this, it means the past has found its way back. I didn't mean for it to, but I couldn't live with the lie any longer. That night, someone recorded something they shouldn't have, and they've been holding it ever since. I took a copy to protect you both. I never meant for the truth to disappear. Look for the film reel. It was hidden at the warehouse under the initials. Sandra's breath caught. The crate, the one with our initials. Keanu nodded slowly. He hid it there, and we didn't even see it. He stood, grabbing his jacket again. We're going back. In this storm? She asked. He met her eyes. Truth doesn't wait for clear skies. They rode through the night again, the rain blinding, the road slick and glowing under the streetlights. By the time they reached the warehouse, the power was out. They used their phones for light, the beams cutting through the dust. Keanu went straight to the crate where they had found the box earlier. He moved it aside, revealing another wooden plank underneath. Together, they pried it open. Inside, wrapped in an old cloth, was a small metal film reel marked 18.09.94. Sandra stared at it. This is it, he nodded. Michael said this is what they've been hiding. They looked around for a projector, but there was none in sight. The warehouse was silent except for the rain hitting the roof. We can take it back and find somewhere to play it, Keanu said. But before he could move, the overhead lights flickered on suddenly, every bulb glowing bright at once. They froze. Then from the far side of the room, a voice echoed, calm, measured, and eerily familiar. You finally found it. Keanu turned toward the sound. A tall man stepped from the shadows, his face half hidden beneath the hood of a raincoat. Sandra's voice broke the silence. Who are you? The man lowered the hood slowly. His face was older, weathered, but his eyes sharp, eyes they both recognized. You, Keanu whispered. It was Andrew Lewis, the assistant director from Speed. The man who had disappeared halfway through production. He smiled faintly. It's been a long time, hasn't it? Sandra's voice shook. You were the one filming us that night. I was, he said simply. And you deserve to know why. Keanu stepped forward, his tone steady. Then talk. Andrew looked at both of them, his expression unreadable. Because what you remember about that night isn't the whole truth. The whole truth. The hum of the lights filled the warehouse, steady and unnatural. Rain drummed on the metal roof above, echoing like distant applause for a truth that had waited 30 years to be spoken. Keanu stood still, his hands clenched at his sides, while Sandra took a slow step forward, her eyes locked on the man in front of them. Andrew Lewis, the missing assistant director, looked older, thinner, and heavier in spirit. His voice, though calm, carried a tremor of something that felt like guilt. "You shouldn't have come back," he said quietly. "But I knew you would. The past always finds its way home." "Start explaining," Keanu said, his tone steady but sharp. "What were you doing filming us that night?" Andrew exhaled slowly, looking down at the floor. "It started as curiosity. That rap party was supposed to be my last night on the job. I was leaving the business. I wanted one final memory, so I brought a small handheld camera." "That doesn't explain the notes, the threats, or the messages," Sandra said. "Someone's been following us, watching us. That's not nostalgia." He nodded. "No, that came later, after what happened that night." The air shifted around them. Even the rain seemed to quiet as his next words came out. "Someone died that night." The silence that followed was absolute. Sandra blinked, her lips parting in disbelief. "What are you talking about?" Andrew stepped closer to the light. Michael Fowler, the cameraman, wasn't the only one there after the party ended. One of the producers stayed behind. He was drunk, aggressive. He tried to force Sandra to stay and film an extra interview, even though she said no. "You had stepped out, Keanu, to get something from your car. When you came back, you saw him grab her wrist. You reacted before anyone could stop you." Keanu's breath caught, his mind racing. "What are you saying?" "You pushed him," Andrew said quietly. "He fell backward, hit his head on the edge of the crate. There was blood, you froze, we all did." Sandra's eyes widened in shock. "No," she whispered. "That can't be right. That's not what happened." Andrew's eyes softened. "You don't remember, do you?" Keanu's voice dropped lower. "Why don't I remember any of that?" "Because Michael and I made sure you didn't have to," Andrew said. "He was still breathing, but barely. We called the studio doctor and they made it disappear. No police, no reports. They said if word got out, both your careers would be over. Especially yours, Sandra. The studio was terrified of bad press. They told us to bury it, so we did." Sandra felt her knees weaken. "Oh my God," Andrew continued. "The man didn't die that night. He survived, but he lost everything. His job, his credibility. He disappeared, changed his name, and for years I thought that was the end of it. Until last month when I started getting messages too." Keanu's voice grew sharper. "From who?" Andrew looked at them both. "From him." The words hung in the air like smoke. Sandra felt a chill run through her. "You mean he's still alive?" Andrew nodded slowly. "Alive and watching. He's the one sending the notes, the photos, the warnings. He wants you both to remember, to face what happened." Keanu ran a hand through his hair, his thoughts spinning. "That's why he sent the date, the messages. He's been waiting for this." Andrew nodded. "He wants a confession not to the world, but to yourselves." "So what's on the reel?" Sandra asked quietly. "Why did Michael hide it?" "Because it shows everything," Andrew said. "The confrontation, the push, the aftermath. Michael filmed part of it without meaning to. He kept the footage hidden, afraid the studio would destroy it or use it against you." Keanu stared at the reel in his hand, feeling its weight as if it carried not just film but memory itself. "Then we watch it," he said finally. Andrew hesitated. "You sure you want to?" Keanu looked at Sandra. Her eyes were glassy, but her expression was firm. "We've run from this long enough," she said. He nodded. "Then let's see the truth." Andrew connected a small portable projector from his bag, old, worn, but functional. He loaded the reel with careful hands, his breath unsteady. The light flickered to life, casting trembling shadows on the wall. The film began. The grainy image showed the warehouse 30 years earlier, full of laughter, clinking glasses, the glow of youth. People danced, music played faintly. Sandra appeared in frame, smiling, surrounded by crew members. Keanu was nearby, arm around a friend, relaxed and unaware. Then, as the crowd thinned, the footage changed. It was handheld, shaky. Sandra stood near the crate, alone, looking tired. The producer, a tall man in a dark jacket, walked toward her. The sound was faint, but his tone was sharp. "Just one more take. The studio wants a few more lines." "We already wrapped," she said. "It's done." He grabbed her arm. She pulled away, the camera jolted. Then from off-screen, Keanu's voice, calm at first, then angry. "Hey, let her go." The man turned. There was a scuffle, movement too fast to follow. Sandra gasped. the man fell backward. The camera dropped to the floor, showing only flashes of light and sound, a body hitting the ground, a shout, then silence. The screen went black. No music, no credits. Just the rain outside filling the silence between them. Sandra covered her mouth, tears streaming silently down her cheeks. "You were protecting me," she whispered. "You didn't mean to." Keanu stared at the blank wall, his face pale, haunted by a memory that had been buried too long. "And they covered it up. They let us live with a lie." Andrew shut off the projector. "We thought we were protecting you, but lies don't die. They wait." Keanu's voice broke the silence. "Where is he now?" Andrew hesitated. "He sent me one last message before you came. He said he wanted to meet both of you, tomorrow night, at the old theater downtown. The place where it all started." Sandra wiped her tears. "And what if it's a trap?" "It probably is," Andrew admitted, "but it's the only way this ends." Keanu nodded slowly. "Then we go." "Keanu," Sandra started, but he stopped her gently. "We've lived too long under shadows. I'd rather face the truth than hide one more day." She looked into his eyes filled not with fear, but resolve. For a moment she remembered why she had loved him all those years ago. He had always faced the world quietly but completely. She took his hand. "Then we face it together." As the storm outside began to fade into a cold mist, the three of them packed the reel, folded the projector, and walked out of the warehouse. The dawn was still hours away, but something in the air had changed, lighter, sharper, like a breath before the final reveal. The city lights shimmered through the rain as Keanu whispered under his breath, "Tomorrow, we tell Heimverithing." And in that quiet promise, both knew the next night would not just bring answers. It would decide whether their past destroyed them or set them free. The next night came slower than either of them expected. The storm had passed, but the air in Los Angeles still carried that heavy scent of rain, the smell of things washed clean but not yet forgiven. Sandra sat by the window of her apartment, staring out at the glistening streets. Dawn had promised peace, but night had returned with quiet tension. She looked down at the small note in her hand, the one Andrew had written before leaving to prepare the meeting. Midnight. The Old Crown Theater. Come alone, if you can. She turned the paper over and over, her fingers trembling. Come alone. That was never going to happen. Behind her, Keanu walked in from the balcony, wearing his black jacket, the one she remembered from years ago. Simple, worn, honest. His expression was calm, but his eyes gave him away. They carried the weight of too many buried years. "You ready?" he asked softly. She nodded, slipping the note into her coat pocket. "I don't think ready exists for this kind of thing," he smiled faintly. "Then we'll settle for brave." They left together just before midnight. The city felt emptier than usual, as if the streets themselves were waiting. The Crown Theater stood near the end of an old block, its marquee long faded, its doors locked for decades. A place once filled with applause, now holding only silence. They parked a short distance away. The building loomed over them, shadows stretching across the cracked pavement. One dim light flickered above the entrance. "Are you sure about this?" she asked quietly. Keanu looked at her, then at the door. "The truth doesn't go away when you ignore it. It just gets louder." They stepped inside. The air was cold and dusty, carrying the faint scent of old film reels and forgotten stories. Seats were torn, the red curtains shredded and heavy with age. At the center of the stage, a single spotlight glowed faintly. Already on. Someone was waiting. Andrew stood near the edge of the stage, his coat draped over one arm. Beside him was a man in a dark suit, older, his hair gray, his face thin and pale but unmistakable. Sandra froze. "That's him," she whispered. Keanu's chest tightened. "The producer." The man turned slowly, a small, bitter smile crossing his lips. "I wondered how long it would take for you to remember." Keanu took a step forward. "You've been following us, sending threats. Why?" The man chuckled softly. "Threats? No, Keanu, not threats. Reminders. You both built your perfect lives on that night, on silence. And I was the one left behind, blamed for things I didn't do, forgotten like I never existed. I just wanted you to feel what I felt. You attacked her, Keanu said, his voice tight. You were drunk and you grabbed her. The man's eyes hardened. I made a mistake, yes, but I didn't deserve exile. I didn't deserve to lose everything while you became the hero and she became the star.
You're wrong, Sandra said quietly. We didn't become anything because of you. We worked, we built, we carried guilt we couldn't name. That's not fame, that's survival. He stared at her for a long moment, and for a brief second, his bitterness faltered. Then he laughed, a dry, hollow sound. You sound like the woman from that night. Terrified, full of excuses. Keanu's jaw tightened. You don't get to talk to her that way. The man turned sharply. And you don't get to pretend you're innocent. You could have spoken the truth then. You could have come forward, but you let them bury me. Keanu's eyes lowered. You're right. The man blinked, caught off guard. You're right, Keanu said again. We let it happen. I let it happen. I was scared, confused. I didn't mean to hurt you, but I didn't stop the cover-up either. We all ran. Sandra stepped beside him, her voice trembling but clear. And we've carried it ever since. That's why we're here, to face it. To give you what you wanted all along. The man's expression softened slightly, though suspicion still lingered in his gaze. And what's that? Acknowledgement, Keanu said. Not excuses, not silence. You were wrong that night, but so were we. And maybe we can't undo it, but we can stop hiding from it. Andrew, who had been silent until now, stepped closer. We all played a part. Michael, me, the studio. We turned truth into a lie because it was easier. But Michael wanted to fix it before he died. That's why he saved the reel. The man looked at him, then at the small bag Keanu carried. You brought it. Keanu nodded. Yes, the real record of what happened. It shows everything. The argument, the fall, the panic. Nothing else. No malice, no cover-up. Just mistakes. The man's eyes flickered. And what do you want me to do with it? Whatever. Whatever gives you peace, Sandra said gently. If destroying it helps, do it. If keeping it helps, it's yours. We just want this to end.
For a long moment, no one moved. The only sound was the faint hum of the projector light above the stage. The man finally walked forward. His steps were slow, uncertain. He took the reel from Keanu's hand, staring at it as if it were both a weapon and a wound. 30 years, he whispered. 30 years of silence for one mistake. Sandra nodded quietly. Sometimes silence lasts longer than punishment. His eyes met hers, weary, almost human again. You really didn't remember, did you? She shook her head. Not until the notes started. Not until we saw the truth. He turned the reel over in his hands once more, then walked toward the edge of the stage. From his coat pocket, he pulled out a small lighter. The flame flared briefly, bright and trembling. For a moment, Keanu thought he would burn it. End it all right there. But instead, the man sighed and extinguished the flame. No, he said softly. The truth doesn't burn. It just changes shape. He placed the reel down gently on the stage floor. Take it. Tell the world if you want, or keep it between you. I'm done carrying ghosts. And with that, he turned and walked into the shadows of the theater, disappearing behind the broken curtains. None of them followed. For a long time, Sandra and Keanu stood there, staring at the empty space he left behind. The silence that followed wasn't heavy anymore. It was calm, clean. Andrew exhaled, his voice low. Maybe that's the closest we'll ever get to peace. Keanu nodded. Maybe peace isn't about forgetting. Maybe it's about finally remembering without running. He turned to Sandra. She looked tired, her hair still damp from the mist outside,
but her eyes held a softness he hadn't seen in years. "After all this," she said, "I don't even know what to do next." He smiled faintly. "Maybe we start with something simple. Breakfast." She laughed quietly, the sound breaking the long wait of silence. "You still know how to find light in the dark." "You taught me that," he said. As they walked out of the theater, the city was beginning to glow again, not with neon, but with morning. The first rays of dawn touched the wet streets, and for the first time in years, both of them felt unburdened. Outside, Keanu turned toward her, the corners of his eyes soft with sincerity. "There's one more truth left," he said quietly. "What's that?" He looked at her for a long moment. "That I never stopped loving you. Not then, not after, not even now." Her breath caught. The honesty in his tone broke something gentle inside her. She smiled through the tears that finally fell. "You took long enough," she whispered. He reached out, brushing her cheek lightly. "Some truths need time to learn how to be spoken." She leaned into his hand, her voice barely a breath. "Then let's stop wasting time." The sun broke through the clouds, spilling light across them as they walked away from the theater. Two people finally freed from the weight of their silence, carrying not guilt, but peace. And in the distance, the city woke with them, as if it too had been waiting for this moment of quiet forgiveness.